I never imagined a homeless girl's blood would save the dying CEO, and steal his heart forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood on the corner of 5th and Main, the wind biting at my skin like little knives. My stomach ached, empty and hollow, echoing the weight of despair I carried. I was invisible, just another shadow in the city's bright lights. Then, a commotion shattered that silence. The best-dressed man I had ever seen stumbled out of a shiny black car, his tailored suit glimmering like the stars I could never touch. The crowd gasped. Was he sick? An accident? I fought through the throng, drawn in by chaos, my heart racing. When I reached him, I saw the terror in his eyes, a wild storm of confusion and pain. Blood spilled from his side, staining the pristine pavement crimson. My breath caught. It wasn't just any body, it was Ethan Reed, the ruthless CEO everyone feared. The embodiment of wealth and power. I felt the world closing in. What could I do? But something deep inside urged me to act, so I knelt beside him, trembling hands hovering over the wound, overwhelmed by fresh panic. Others stood back, their phones glued to their faces, recording his demise, but it felt like time had stopped. I remembered my mother's voice, urging me to be brave, to help those in need, no matter who they were. There was a stirring in the crowd. Some whispered, "Let him bleed out." Others chastised, "He's just a homeless girl." It pinched at my heart, those two words, homeless girl, like stones thrown to shatter my spirit. But in that moment, I felt a spark of hope flare inside me. I pressed my ragged old jacket against his side, my own blood seeping into the chaos. With every heartbeat, I could feel life slipping from him. I lifted my chin. "Stay with me, Ethan. You can't leave." It felt surreal, the city blurring into a whirl of lights and sirens, breaking through the haze of my fear. A paramedic arrived, shoving me aside. I felt the sharp sting of rejection, something clawing at my insides. They rushed him away, the sirens screaming like banshees. And just like that, the moment slipped from my grasp, hanging heavy in the air, unanswered questions swirling around us. What had I done? Did my blood truly change anything? And then, as he was whisked away, I caught a glimpse of his eyes locking onto mine, confusion mixing with something else. A flicker of recognition. A silent promise. What if I could save him, and he could save me in return? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days drifted by like fallen leaves, each one a subdued echo of the last as the world spun without me. I spent the following week in a half-reality, caught between my old life and the nagging hope that tied me irrevocably to Ethan. News clips flashed on screens across the city, updating viewers on his mysterious recovery, but nothing could fill the void his absence created. I returned to the corner of 5th and Main, the shouts of vendors and the rush of people a dull roar in my ears. I was a mere observer of life, drifting like a ghost through moments that others seemed to embrace fully. Occasionally, I would catch snippets of laughter or snatches of conversation, but nothing anchored me. The side of the road felt hollow, mirroring the emptiness deep inside. One evening, as twilight enveloped the city in its soft embrace, something unexpected happened. An old woman, her hair an unkempt halo around a kind face, settled beside me. I hadn't noticed her before, camouflaged in the shifting shadows of night. She wore layers of clothes that looked as if they had been stitched together from the remnants of someone else's life. Immediately, she turned to me, her voice gentle yet firm. "Child, you can't hide forever." I felt a jolt, her words pulling at something buried deep within me. "I'm not hiding," I retorted, perhaps too sharply. But she only chuckled softly and settled deeper into her bundle of fabric. Sometimes, it's not about hiding, it's about seeking. Tell me what's weighing on that heart of yours. Before I could stop myself, the words spilled out. The chaos of the city around us faded as I recounted the day I'd attempted to save a man who seemed so far removed from my world. She listened, her wrinkled hands clasped in her lap, a serene smile dancing across her lips as if my tale was a familiar melody. When I finished, relief washed over me. He looked at me, I murmured, like he recognized something in me, something worth saving. Wisdom often comes in strange packages, she replied, glancing up at the twinkling stars that began to dot the sky. Perhaps he is meant to bring light to your shadows just as you brought light to his. Her gaze held mine, an understanding passing between us, and for the first time in many days, I felt the flicker of hope again. But as I began to believe in possibilities, a powerful engine roared to life in the distance, drowning out the whispers of my heart. My pulse quickened as the sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out, looking urgent and disheveled. My breath caught as Ethan stepped into the night. It felt as if the world had tilted on its axis. He looked different, paler perhaps, with shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. But that familiar intensity burned within him, igniting something dormant in my soul. The two of us locked eyes, and for a brief moment, time stood still again, as if the universe was reminding us that our destinies were intertwined. Then, in a swift motion, he pulled out his phone, and in an instant, the connection broke. He began talking urgently, clearly frustrated. "No, I'm telling you I need to see her." His eyes flared with a desperation that echoed my own yearning. Was he talking about me? My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and I almost believed that he had been searching for me, thinking of me. Yet, just as quickly, he turned away, leaving me to wrestle with doubts that clawed at my confidence. I stood frozen as the old woman nudged me gently, "Go to him. Life unfolds in tiny moments. Don't let this one slip away." For one agonizing moment, I hesitated, my heart a fragile murmuration caught between fear and hope. But as the warmth of the past flooded over me, I steeled myself. I took a step forward but then paused. I caught a glimpse of his shadowy figure retreating toward the car, a weight of unspoken words lingering between us. Before I could call out, before I could bridge the chasm of uncertainty that had formed since the moment our worlds collided, the door shut with a hollow thud. The driver sped away, leaving a gust of wind that robbed me of breath, an empty echo of what could have been. And in that moment, I realized that despite the tumult of emotions swirling within, I felt more lost than before, tethered to a possibility that dangled just out of reach. I turned back to the old woman, searching for comfort in her eyes, but she was already fading into the shadows. "Wait!" I cried, but she had disappeared, her presence dissolving like wisps of smoke. The city lights dimmed, reflecting my internal storm. Alone, I felt the weight of my future heavy on my chest, laden with questions unasked, words unspoken, and a connection that was just beginning to form. As I wandered back into the night, the realization lingered. My heart was caught in the riptide of fate, and I didn't know if I would ever get to the other side. The rainy morning came, the sky a dreary gray that mirrored the heaviness in my heart. I found myself at the same corner of 5th and Main, but this time, a thick veil of uncertainty hung over me. Each passerby seemed like a ghost of the vibrant life I once knew, and I was invisible, a specter drifting through memories intertwined with regret. Ethan's silhouette loomed large in my mind, haunting me with every tick of the clock. Who had he been calling for? What did he need to say? The questions gnawed at me like a hungry dog, relentless and insatiable. That brief reconnection had ignited a flicker of hope, yet its quick extinguishment left me in a deeper chasm of despair. As I sat on the curb, the rain began to fall in gentle, rhythmical taps, each droplet a reminder of how fragile life was, how quickly it could turn, how dreams could fray. With each passing day, the world felt a little more distant, and I feared I was losing pieces of myself to the already burgeoning shadows. Just when I thought I could fight no longer, a commotion erupted to my left. A small crowd had gathered around a young girl. She couldn't have been older than 10, her hair matted and her clothes tattered. I edged closer, drawn by the urgency of the situation. A boy, perhaps her brother, stood beside her, his hands wringing together nervously. She fell. She won't wake up, he cried, his voice quaking with desperation. The crowd buzzed with uncertainty, murmuring words of doubt. Maybe she's just tired, a woman said half-heartedly, but the boy's expression confirmed my fears. Something was terribly wrong. Without thinking, I pushed my way through the assembled spectators. Is she breathing? I knelt beside the girl, who lay curled in the stillness of the alley. I could feel the warmth of her fever radiating against my fingertips. The fight inside me flared. I couldn't ignore her, I had to help. Call an ambulance. I yelled to the growing crowd, my voice commanding and yet trembling. As people moved, I grasped her small hand, searching for signs of life. I was acutely aware of the weight of the moment, of how I had let my own fears suffocate my ability to connect. I began to speak to her, my words a mix of encouragement and reassurance. You're going to be okay. Help is coming. Stay with me. But as I applied pressure to her wrist, I noticed the bruise forming just above her pulse point. A memory surged in meth stories of the city, the darkness that chased so many children into the depths of despair. The urgency became almost unbearable, and I felt a lump in my throat. My own history threatened to intoxicate me with grief, but I had to push it aside. Just then, a familiar voice broke through the cacophony of thoughts in my head. Step aside. Let me check her. I looked up to see Ethan pushing his way through the crowd. His presence filled the air with tension, and as our eyes met, a jolt coursed through me. Beneath the pallor of his skin, a fierce determination ignited something I thought was long lost. That he knelt down beside me, his palms brushing the mud from her little face. Keep talking to her, he instructed me, all business, yet a flicker of concern lit his eyes. I nodded and returned to my soothing words, pouring every ounce of warmth I could muster into the girl. Ethan worked quickly, his hands steady as he assessed the situation. The sirens wailed in the distance, a sound of hope amidst the panic. She needs sugar, he said, his voice low and urgent. Someone get her a soda or candy, anything sweet. As someone sprinted to disappear into the nearby convenience store, Ethan positioned his body to shield the child from the rain, creating a small sanctuary of warmth. The simple gesture flooded my heart with a mixture of admiration and confusion, forcing me to confront the changes in him and within myself. In the days we had spent apart, minutes felt like hours in that charged space, each second filled with the throbbing pulse of uncertainty. Could we really save her? Could I save anyone? The weight of my shortcomings pressed heavily on me, yet the sense of purpose was intoxicating. Finally, the girl stirred beneath our protective embrace. She whimpered softly as her eyelids fluttered. I raked my fingers gently through her hair, whispering words of comfort as Ethan called to her, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos. He's going to be fine. Just hold on. His determination soared, igniting the flicker of hope that had been dimmed for so long. I caught a glimpse of who he was, becoming a guardian, a fighter for those who couldn't save themselves. It was breathtaking and terrifying. When the paramedics arrived, they took over seamlessly, their movements practiced and fluid. And as they carefully lifted the little girl, I caught Ethan's eye one last time. An unspoken connection passed between us, a promise that flickered in the air, a shared understanding of the fragility of life, but just as quickly, he turned away, following the ambulance as it drove off, a fleeting moment eclipsed by the harshness of reality. I remained standing, the crowd thinning until I was left alone, nothing but the dying echoes of sirens and the rain soaking into my skin. That I was stranded in a storm of what-ifs, rip currents of unexpressed feelings dragging my heart down. Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed a crumpled piece of paper lying beneath an abandoned bench. As I approached, I felt a chill run down my spine when I picked it up. My breath caught in my throat as I read the words scrawled hastily. My heart plummeted. I know about you. Meet me where the light breaks tomorrow, or risk losing everything. I stared into the distance, uncertainty crashing down again, heavy and suffocating, as the rain continued to pour, each drop merging the shadows into a heavy fog of despair. I had no idea who had sent the note, or what awaited me at sunrise. But one thing was clear, the journey was far from over, and the stakes had risen impossibly high. With the sun dipping below the horizon, the sky transformed from a dismal gray to a bruised purple, echoing the tempest brewing within me. I could barely process the note crumpled in my grasp, my mind racing with trepidation. "Where the light breaks," I murmured, trying to decipher its meaning while the chilling wind toyed with the edges of my coat. The bustling streets that had once felt so alive now appeared suffocating, each sound amplified in the silence of my thoughts. Stepping back from the remnants of the brief, chaotic moment with Ethan and the little girl, I found myself standing frozen, consumed by conflicting emotions. A wave of guilt washed over me for indulging in the warmth of Ethan's presence, yet the fear of losing him blackened my thoughts like storm clouds. They were only beginning to clear, revealing glimpses of hope, yet shadowed by the weight of this ominous message that I had no choice but to find answers. As night descended, I wandered through the streets, the once familiar neighborhoods now cloaked in an eerie ambience. The hint of despair lingered around every corner, each flickering streetlight casting shadows that resembled phantoms of my past, timid and haunting. Suddenly, a soft tug at my sleeve pulled me from my spiral of thoughts. I knelt down as a small boy, no older than 6, peered up at me from the shadows. "Miss, have you got any food?" His eyes bore into mine, wide and pleading, the innocence within them stark against the grime of the pavement. I reached into my bag and retrieved the last granola bar I had stashed away. "Here. This should tide you over." I handed it to him, my heart swelling with a bittersweet ache. The child unwrapped it with clumsy fingers, gratitude flashing across his face. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice small and vulnerable. As he munched away, I couldn't help but see a reflection of the girl we'd just saved. The universe had a cruel sense of humor, juxtaposing the fragility of youth against the harshness of reality. Taking a moment to absorb this small act of kindness, a connection forged over something as simple as food offered me a sliver of warmth that made the burdens feel a little less heavy. "What's your name?" I asked, hoping to anchor myself back into the moment. "Joey," he replied shyly. "Joey, what are you doing out here all alone?" "My mom's sick. We can't go home. But I find food sometimes." His response hitched in his throat, his eyes momentarily glistening with unshed tears before he hastily blinked them away. I wished I could capture that moment, that exchange, the purity of his needs reminding me that in this chaotic city, we were all fighting battles just to survive. "I am sorry. Do you have somewhere safe to sleep tonight?" He shook his head, his small hand wrapping around mine, seeking a warmth he perhaps had not felt in a while. The world of shadows and echoes swallowed us both, a stark reminder of the trials we faced in our lives. "I don't want to be alone," he confessed, his voice trembling. In that split second, my heart ached for him and all the children like him, left to navigate a cruel world void of kindness. "You're not alone, Joey," I said softly, squeezing his tiny hand. "You're not alone." A sudden idea struck me. If I could help him? What if I could find a shelter, a place where he could feel safe, even for a night? For the first time since the chaos erupted, a plan began to form, brimming with hope and determination. "Let's find somewhere warm," I suggested, drawing my coat closer around him. "You can come with me." As we began walking, my unconventional companion at my side, he told me fragments of his life, tales of laughter, warmth, and even laughter, hiding beneath the weight of his reality. It all felt surreal, our bond growing stronger through the ease of conversation amidst a cacophony of urban life. As I approached the local shelter, still anxiously thinking of the cryptic note and what tomorrow might bring, a pang of uncertainty gripped me. I had been trying so hard to reroute the chaos of my own life, yet it seemed the universe was nudging me toward this young boy, reminding me of the profound power of human connection. Inside the shelter, I watched as Joey's demeanor transformed. The warmth, the scent of home-cooked meals, and the gentle chatter wrapped around him like a loving embrace. I felt a bittersweet satisfaction swell within me, a vessel of hope realized in this singular moment. As the night wore on, while Joey climbed onto a cot where other children gathered, I stepped outside for air, my mind torn between the promise of tomorrow and the harrowing implications of the note. It shimmered in my pocket, a constant reminder of the unknown. The weight of it pressed against my heart, dragging me back to Ethan's image, the connection we had shared that afternoon, the sparkle in his eyes when he saw me take charge. Suddenly, a voice broke through my thoughts. "You did good today." I turned to find Ethan leaning against the entrance of the shelter, his silhouette a comforting presence amidst the backdrop of the night. My heart raced, unsure if I was more anxious about his sudden appearance, the message I carried, or the flicker of warmth that ignited within me at his words, but before I could respond, his expression shifted to one of concern. "You said there was a note." Innocently, I reached for it, my fingers trembling. The urgency of my earlier emotions ebbing away, now replaced with the weight of Ethan's gaze. I didn't know how to share the implications of what I had read and the secrets it entailed. As I unfolded the crumpled paper, a wind gust swirled around us, carrying with it a sense of impending fate. Would I share this with him? Would I risk pulling him into the darkness that clung to my heart? Before I could make a choice, a siren blared in the distance. A sudden crash echoed, muffled by the chaos of uncertainty, instantly jolting us both into alertness. Neither of us could ignore the tension hanging in the air, a storm brewing on the horizon, the faintest promise of consequences unfolding, tangled in the tapestry of our lives. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the shadows, and whispers among the shelter staff prompted dread butterflies in my stomach. "It's him!" someone gasped. I turned, pulling Ethan closer as the chilling leer of a man I recognized from my past, a man whose shadow stretched across my history like a dark veil. I felt the warmth of Ethan's hand gripping mine, and the haunting realization settled deep within me: the storm was indeed here, and it was ready to collide with my reality head-on. I had to choose, but would I? As the figure advanced, I felt fear and clarity meld within me, a whirlwind of emotion unrecognizable yet undeniably powerful. The figure loomed closer, and recognition struck like lightning. My heart raced as the reality of the past came crashing into the present. There he stood, Derek, a face I thought had faded along with old memories, but now, he was as vivid and threatening as ever. His smile was a blend of malice and misplaced confidence, the kind capable of unsettling even the steadiest heart. "Fancy seeing you here," he said, his voice smooth but dripping with an arrogance that made my skin crawl. There was a history between us that wrapped around us like a noose, binding my thoughts as tightly as my fears. "Ethan, we need to go," I blurted out, turning to pull him away from the gathering crowd and the dark familiarity of Derek. Yet, the grip of my past refused to relent. "What's going on?" Ethan's brows furrowed, but before I could respond, Derek closed the distance, stepping into the fragile circle of light cast by the shelter's doorway. "Let her go, man," Ethan warned, flexing his muscles and squared his shoulders. There was a strength in his stance that I had clung to, but still, the fear gnawed at me. "Why so serious?" Derek chuckled, amusement dancing across his features. "She hasn't changed a bit, still running from her shadow. But guess what? Shadows can't really be outrun, can they?" I swallowed hard, my voice caught in my throat as I tried to decipher his intentions. Behind him, the dimly lit shelter appeared to be a Havana space of warmth filled with laughter and children dreaming of a better tomorrow. Yet here, standing before Derek, a tremor swept through me, unraveling the seams of my newfound sense of safety. "Stay away from her, Derek," Ethan warned again, stepping protectively in front of me. His unwavering stance softened the edges of my anxiety, but the sinister undertones of Derek's smirk made courage feel distant. "Oh, let's not be dramatic," Derek said, his eyes darting to the shelter and then back at me, probing and unyielding. "I merely want to chat. After all, haven't you always said that we could meet when I least expected it? Why are you really here?" I shot back, my voice steadier than I felt. The old wounds inflicted by Derek burned like acid, and the last thing I wanted was to expose this vulnerability in front of Ethan, who looked ready to take action. Derek leaned closer, enough that I could smell the stale scent of cigarettes on him. "Your little note got me curious. It was quite the cryptic affair, wouldn't you say? But think of all the doors it could open, or close." A shiver traversed my spine, the weight of his words settling ominously within me. The note wasn't merely a chaotic jumble of hints but a potential weapon in the twisted game we were entangled in. "That I don't know what you mean," I asserted, trying to sound resolute. But as Derek smirked, a portrait of confidence in the face of turmoil, a marionette strings pulled tight within me. "Ethan shifted, I could see the conflict in his eyes, uncertain whether I was still in control of this interaction or if the past was reclaiming me piece by piece. "You're not welcome here," he said, voice unwavering but mixed with concern, a silent plea for me to stay strong. Why not let her answer for herself? Derek shrugged, feigning innocence. "I'm merely trying to help. I've got offers that could change everything for you and your little friend, the boy you just took under your wing, Joey." I gasped, the mere mention of him igniting a cold fury within. "What do you know about him, oh, sweetheart?" Derek taunted, stepping back momentarily, savoring the chaos of emotions dancing on my face. "Just enough to know that in this town, people like you rarely get second chances, especially not when the stakes are this high. You'd be surprised how far a little information can go or how much it could cost." Ethan's protective stance faltered, confusion flickering across his expression. "What do you want from her?" He confronted Derek, his voice steely. There was a protectiveness rising inside him that both comforted and terrified me. "Just be a good boy," Derek replied, holding up his hands mockingly. "I promise, I'm not here for a fight. Only a discussion. If she's lucky, she might just leave with more than she came with. Or perhaps it's all just every girl's worst nightmare. The choice is hers." The last words hung heavy in the air, turning a bright evening into a storm cloud of doubt and anxiety. I wished for every thread of the promise I had clung to, the vision of hope I held when I met Joey, the brief warmth shared with Ethan. But with each passing second, shadows loomed larger, colliding with the little flickers of light I had been grasping. Derek took a step back, his expression darkening as he sensed the impending shift. "Tick-tock, my dear. Time is not on your side," he said, throwing his gaze to the bustling scene of the shelter behind me. "You never know what you might lose or gain." Suddenly, I felt the earth shift beneath me as his words bore the weight of 1,000 unshed tears. Just then, a commotion erupted inside the shelter, laughter turning to startled gasps. The shadows had breached the safety of our sanctuary. Before I could react, Derek's grin widened as he slipped silently back into the dark, leaving me aware of a sinister truth: this was only the prelude to a storm that had yet to unveil its fury. Ethan turned to me, urgency etched across his features. "What do we do?" Words tangled in my mind, but one thing was agonizingly clear: the battle was far from over, and the choices I made next could ripple like waves, altering the paths of many, possibly even Joey's. The light flickered behind us, but something far more foreboding loomed ahead, and I had to find the strength to face it, before it consumed us all. The sharp embrace of silence hung heavily in the aftermath of Derek's departure, wrapping around us like a thick fog. Ethan's presence was a comforting anchor, but my heart raced, echoing the uncertainty left in the wake of his threatening words. "Let's get inside," he urged, his voice firm yet laced with concern. I could see the tight lines on his forehead, the way his jaw set with determination. I nodded, but the warmth and laughter filtering through the door felt alien now, as if the world inside had shifted while we stood paralyzed against Derek's taunts. As we stepped into the shelter, the dulcet sounds of children laughing and volunteers chatting seemed to blur together, overshadowed by the adrenaline still coursing through me. I stepped to the side, needing a moment of clarity in the chaotic swirl of my emotions. How could Derek reappear now, just as I began to feel safe? The giant steps I'd taken toward repairing my life were sinking back into the shadows he conjured, and with that, doubt began to seep into the cracks of my resolve. "Hey," Ethan said softly, breaking through my haze, "you okay?" His hand hovered just inches from my shoulder, a reminder that I wasn't alone. In this daunting moment, my breath hitching, he offered a flicker of warmth, the kind of light I thought I lost for good that I inhaled sharply, pulling together the fragments of courage I had. "I will be," I murmured, but the words felt brittle, like glass poised to shatter. Still, I pushed myself to search the crowd for Joey, the innocent joy that had once seeped into my heart. Perhaps his laughter could melt away this bitter chill that had settled in my bones. "Let me find him," Ethan said, scanning the room. With a reassuring hand, he squeezed my arm, cutting through my spiraling thoughts. "You're not alone anymore. We'll deal with Derek together. Just take a breath." As he moved away to glimpse through the throngs of children, my eyes roamed the room, landing on the festive decoration. Streamers hung like rainbows, colorful drawings plastered to the walls, a mural depicting dreams that echoed among the chatter. Hope sprang silently from these details, whispering that perhaps the world outside Derek's reach still held promise. When Joey emerged, his face brightened with that pure joy, eyes sparkling, hair tousled from his playful adventures. He darted toward me, an innocent blur wrapped in a blanket of exuberance. "Miss Amelia! Miss Amelia!" he exclaimed, wrapping his arms around my waist, and in the warmth of his hug, I could almost forget the darkness that lurked. "Hey there, little champ." I smiled, closing my eyes for a moment, letting his untainted spirit pulse through me. "Did you have fun?" "Yeah," he enthused, pulling back to show me a crayon drawing he had crafted. It was wild and beautiful, and everything from the vivid swirls of color reminded me of the light he brought into my life. It felt like a fragile thread connecting us amidst lurking shadows. "Look! That's us, with the big house and a garden and a puppy." Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes, and I laughed softly. "It's perfect, Joey. It really is." I could see the pieces of my dream reflected in his innocent creation, but the reality of Derek's threats loomed darkly in the background. "Go show your picture to Ethan," I encouraged, urging him to scamper off, giving myself a moment of solitude to gather my swirling thoughts. But before I could amend my racing heart, a familiar voice cut through the laughter ringing around me. "Amelia!" It was Sarah, the shelter director, breaking into my fleeting warmth. Her face was flushed with excitement, but there was something in her expression that flickered with nervousness, a shadow of apprehension. "Yes," I replied, noticing what seemed like a fusillade of questions dancing behind her eyes. "There's something we need to discuss," she said, her tone low and serious, casting a glance back toward the doorway where Derek had stood moments before. The joy from Joey's drawing faded slightly under the weight of her words. "What is it? Come with me," she urged, leading me away from the heart of the festivities. Each step felt heavier, almost as if reality itself was tethering me to an unavoidable conclusion. Once we were away from the vibrant chaos, Sarah turned to me, her expression grave. "I don't want to alarm you, but we received a call from someone important." The air became thick around me, an unwelcome realm of tension coiling in my gut. "Who?" She steeled herself for a moment, her lips pressing into a thin line. "It's Derek. He claims he knows something about your past, something that could come back to haunt you. He wants to meet." That I felt the ground shift again, new waves of dread crashing over me, stealing the last remnants of hope I had foolishly believed could flourish here. "I won't meet him," I said firmly, but uncertainty curled beneath my skin like smoke coiling in the air. "Amelia, I understand how you feel," Sarah said gently, "but this could impact the shelter, the children here." "If he's threatening to expose anything." "No," I interrupted, my voice sharper than I intended, fueled by a mixture of fear and defiance. "I won't let him have that power over me again." But even as I said it, I could feel the tremor bubbling within, the nagging voice whispering that turning away from Derek now might not be as simple as just walking away. Just then, the electrifying shock of urgency jolted through my veins. I needed to protect Joey, protect this fragile sanctuary I had grown to cherish. If it's not me, he could turn to someone else, I realized suddenly, the implications crashing down on me like a tide. "It's not just you, Amelia. He's presented himself as a threat to the entire community," Sarah insisted. "We have to stand together." A sharp breath escaped my lips as I found myself standing at the precipice of a decision. Would I allow Derek back into my life to confront this threat, or could I shield those I loved from the consequences of my past? The echoes of laughter in the background shimmered in stark contrast to the darkness inching closer, and as I weighed the risks, the ground beneath me began to tremble with uncertainty. It was a familiar tasty reminder of choices half made and paths left untraveled, and I was terrified that either way, someone would get hurt. As I turned back towards Sarah, I said, "Let me think about it." But deep down, I knew that time was a luxury I might not have, and in that moment, the door swung open again, carrying a gust of cold air that snuffed out the last flickers of warmth, leaving an ominous chilling whisper that promised things were only starting to unravel. The warmth of the shelter began to fade, replaced by a chill that permeated my very soul. As I stepped back into the colorful chaos, my heart raced, each beat a reminder of the tangled web Derek had woven around my life. There was Joey, oblivious to the shadows creeping closer, engrossed in sharing his vibrant crayon masterpiece with Ethan. Yet even from across the room, I could feel the distance between us, as if a vast chasm had opened, stretching wide enough to engulf my hopes. "Miss Amelia, look." Joey's voice pierced through my spiraling thoughts. He held up his drawing with beaming pride, but it only served to deepen the ache in my chest. The bright colors clashed with the weight of dread hanging around us, turning my heart into a battleground of light and darkness. That's beautiful. "You're so talented, Joey," I managed to say, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a reflection of my true emotions. But as I glanced at Ethan, I caught his concerned gaze, witnessing the facade sliding off my face like a worn-out cloak. I longed to confide in him, to share my fears, but the looming threat of Derek stifled my words, turning even the simplest interactions into unbearable burdens. The evening unfolded in a blur of laughter and normalcy, but each moment felt like an illusion, a fragile veneer masking what was rapidly unraveling beneath the surface. Children played with endless energy, their laughter lighting up the room as if they were defying the darkness surrounding me. Yet, in every corner, Derek's shadow seemed to stretch a bit further, a reminder that my newfound peace could be shattered with a mere phone call or a knock on the door. "Amelia, can we talk?" Ethan's gentle voice pulled me from my daze. I looked up to find him standing beside me, concern etched across his features. "You've been quiet. Is it about Derek?" "Yes," I replied, my heart racing again under the weight of his earnest gaze. "It's everything. He represents the pain I thought I had left behind. I don't want him to ruin this place or us." Ethan took my hand, his thumb tracing comforting circles on my palm. "You're not alone in this. We're a team, remember? You have a lot of people here who care about you." The sincerity of his words sent a ripple through my heart, igniting small embers of hope. Just for a moment, I allowed myself to lean into the comfort of his presence. "I just want to protect Joey. This place, it's become my sanctuary, and I can't let Derek tarnish that." "Then let's come up with a plan," Ethan said decisively. "We'll face him together. But you have to promise me you'll talk to me. You don't have to carry this burden alone." Tears threatened to spill from my eyes as I nodded, the weight of his support settling like a warm blanket over me. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the joyful chatter around us. But even as we strategized, a gnawing fear settled in my stomach. Derek's threats were insidious, and the idea of him regaining power over my life was like a nightmare I couldn't shake. I felt as if I was holding on to Joey's drawing for dear life, clinging to the innocence it symbolized, yet acutely aware of the suffocating grip of the past that was tightening around my throat. Hours passed, and the fading light began to cast long shadows across the shelter, reminding me of the encroaching darkness that lay outside. As the festivities waned and the children settled down, I stepped onto the porch, breathing in the cool evening air. The stars above twinkled, but their beauty felt distant, ethereal. I longed to reach out and grasp that sense of peace, yet the swirling storm of uncertainty kept me tethered to the ground. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps approached, shattering my reprieve. I turned to see Sarah, her expression frantic, the earlier calm now replaced by urgency. "Amelia, come quickly," she called, her eyes wide with fear. My heart raced as I followed her back inside, each step amplifying the dread coiling in my gut. The room was alive with murmurs as worried faces turned towards us. "What's happened?" I demanded, scanning the crowd for familiar faces. "Derek," Sarah said breathlessly. "He's here." He just pulled up. Panic surged through me like icy water, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. "What do you mean he's here?" "He's outside, Amelia," she said, a gravity to her tone that underscored the seriousness of the situation. "He's demanding to speak to you." The world around me tipped on its axis, and my chest tightened painfully. "I can't. You have to," she pressed, eyes pleading. "We need to handle this now, and your presence, it might soften him." But even as she spoke, I could feel the edges of my resolve unraveling. A roaring tempest swirled within me, colliding with my desire for safety and the great unknown, while the laughter of joy faded into a ghostly echo. Before I could think clearer, Ethan stepped forward, determination etched in his features. "I'll go with you. Well, face him together, no one is alone in this." For a heartbeat, I considered it, the faintest flicker of hope igniting in the depths of my fear. But that spark was quickly drowned by the weight of dread pressing down on me. "No," I whispered, shaken, my voice barely escaping my lips. "I can't put anyone else at risk, not again," but the moment I said it, realization washed over me, chilling my blood. With Derek threatening to reveal the very core of my past, there was no escaping this confrontation, no denying that it would change everything. With trembling hands, I stepped toward the door, heart pounding like war drums, my thoughts spiraling into chaos, about to confront the man who haunted my waking hours, demanding that I face the shadows I had long tried to escape. And as I approached the door, the terrifying thought struck me, echoing louder than my heartbeat: this time, everything was different, and the risks weighed heavier than ever. As the door swung open, I was left wondering if I was ready to plunge into the storm enveloping us, unaware that the encounter with Derek would set forth a chain of events that threatened to destroy everything I fought so fiercely to protect. As the door creaked open, the dim light from inside the shelter spilled out like a golden embrace, illuminating the figure of Derek standing just beyond its threshold. He looked different, hollowed cheeks and a disheveled appearance, but the cold malice in his eyes remained the same. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat aligning with the ticking clock of impending confrontation. As I stepped forward, I wished for nothing more than to retreat into the warmth and safety behind me, but a rush of defiance surged through my veins. I locked eyes with Derek, forcing myself to stand tall despite the tremors of fear racking my body. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steadying in a way that almost surprised me. It felt like a cornerstone of strength, the unwillingness for him to chain me to the past any longer. That he mustered a cruel smile, one that twisted his features and made my stomach churn. "I want what's mine, Amelia. It's time for you to come back home. You can't hide here forever." Home. The word tinged with venom as it slipped from his lips. I swallowed hard, recalling the memories intertwined with that place, the echoes of laughter that turned to screams, the warmth that eventually froze over. "This is my home now," I countered, an anger rising within me, but he saw through it, eyes narrowing like a predator sizing up its prey. Derek stepped forward, the shadows crawling further along his form, trying to claim me as one of his own. "You think you can isolate yourself in this, dump? You have no idea what's really at stake, do you?" He paused, reveling in the fear that flickered across my face, and leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Let's not pretend that all of this," he gestured to the shelter, "isn't built on a shaky foundation. You think you can protect that boy by pretending I don't exist? It'll crumble, Amelia. It always does. Just like you." A knot tightened in my chest. "Joey." I thought of his radiant smile, the innocent joy he'd brought into my life. The longing to protect him warred fiercely with my instinct to flee, but I wouldn't give Derek the satisfaction of knowing how deeply he could cut into my spirit. I had to stand firm. "Joey is safe here. You can't touch him," I said, my voice steadier now, steeling myself against the tempest brewing within. There was a flicker of surprise in his gaze, as if he hadn't expected me to call his bluff. Derek's expression darkened. "Safe? For how long? Sooner or later, you'll slip up. You think the others here will really keep you safe? They'll turn on you, just like everyone else did. You know that, don't you?" Before I could respond, a collective gasp broke through the crowd gathered at the shelter doorway, heads turning towards where Ethan had quietly positioned himself behind me. I felt the warmth of his presence, an unspoken strength anchoring me to the ground. "Derek, whatever you think you want to achieve, it isn't going to happen," Ethan said, his voice calm yet firm. "Amelia has built a life here, and people rally around her. You will not intimidate her. Not now, not ever." A smile played on Derek's lips once more, but this time, it was laced with mockery. "Ah, the knight in shining armor. You think just because you're here, you can protect her? Love is blind while the shadows will always loom. You're all naive. The first time she falters, he'll be waiting. A silence enveloped us, thick and suffocating. My heart raced as dread collided with something else, a fierce, righteous anger. You could say what you wanted about my past, but here and now, I carved my destiny. I drew in a deep breath, reminding myself of everything I stood to lose if I faltered in this moment or gave Derek even an inch. I won't let you use fear against me any longer, I said, voice quivering but resolute. I choose my family here. I choose to protect Joey from you, and I will do whatever it takes to keep him safe. Righteous words for someone with such a dark past, Derek spat, his tone dismissive but the tension crackling palpable. You think you can cut away the darkness, Amelia? The truth will come out, one way or another. Blood runs thicker than water, the implication of his words enveloped me like a suffocating shroud. My pulse quickened, adrenaline surging through me. I could hear Ethan's soft breathing behind me, and for a brief moment, I felt his hand brush against the small of my back, anchoring me in the face of the storm, and then, in that moment, deep within the depths of my heart, I understood the precarious tightrope I had been standing on. This fight wasn't just for me, it was for every child in this shelter who deserved a shot at a bright future untainted by their past. Give me one reason to trust you, I challenged, matching his anger with my own. What could you possibly offer me now, Derek? He grinned, a slithering, unsettling grin. A second chance, Amelia. Come with me, and they'll make sure you and Joey never have to worry again. You won't live day by day in a shelter filled with lies and deceit. I can offer you stability, a life where the past has no power over you. It felt like a trap, the kind that ensnares the unsuspecting, but that familiar, sick twist of longing clawed at my heart. For once, the idea of an easy escape twinkled enticingly in front of me, a chance to reclaim everything I'd thought lost. But just as swiftly as it beckoned, the thought of losing Joey gnawed at my conscience. Something shifted in the air, an unexpected tense Iona whisper of that old familiar pain entwined with the knowledge that Derek would never let me go. And as the weight of his offer hung heavily in the air, the raw truth landed like a hammer on glass. I had no idea what the looming future held, but facing it meant striding through the shadows, unwaveringly. Suddenly, the crowd seemed to murmur, voices rising in discontent. I turned to see Sarah clutching Joey's hand tightly. He looked up at me, confusion clouding his innocent features. Amelia, are you okay? He asked, the innocence raw and pure, like a beacon in the dark. In that moment, I felt the earth shift beneath me, the stakes now intertwined with his fate. I realized the true question tonight was not if I could stand against Derek, but if I would have the courage to protect what mattered most, no matter what he threatened to unleash. And as we remained suspended in this precipice, I steadied my heart, knowing I had no choice but to step forward into whatever awaited me, ready to confront the tempest. But then, I caught Derek glancing past me, eyes narrowing at something unseen, the tension in the air shifting once more. My heart raced, and I turned to follow his gaze, dread pooling in my stomach as I realized it was not just Derek I had underestimated. The walls of my past wrapped tighter around me, and as his smirk deepened, another unsettling truth washed over me: the game had only just begun. The air thrummed with charged silence, the weight of what lay ahead pressing heavily on my shoulders. I stared at Derek as he seemed to scan the crowd, or, perhaps, search my soul for some hidden fragility. It was as if he could sense the tempest brewing within me. My pulse raced like a wild drum, and just as swiftly as I felt the need to stand my ground, another ominous feeling slithered through the pit of my stomach. Amelia, you really should reconsider, Derek said slowly, his voice elongated as if stretching time in a hollow plea. You know how this ends. It's only a matter of time. His words echoed in the hollow of my heart, a chilling reminder of the twisted bonds that once tethered us together. As if in response to his threat, a whisper of movement flitted in the crowd. Marie, a woman from the shelter, nudging her way to the front with a determined look. She had been a source of comfort during the roughest days, her laughter like sunlight peeking through the clouds of my dreary thoughts. Derek, you have no power here, she asserted, throat tight with disbelief. You don't belong in this child's life any more than the darkness in your heart belongs in ours. Derek's demeanor shifted, anger flaring behind his eyes like a wildfire. It carved a worried line across my heart. Is that so? The ignorance here is astounding, he countered, humorless. You think you're all safe? Protecting your own. It's a fragile facade, and when it falls, you'll see exactly how foolish you've all been. A small boy from the back, Timothy, peered out nervously, clutching his ragged stuffed bear. Miss Amelia, he squeaked, you're not scared, right? My heart ached, the light of his innocence juxtaposing the darkness threatening to engulf us. I'm not scared, Timothy, I said, forcing a smile to break over my face. What we have here is strong. And we're going to fight for it, all of us together, Ethan echoed softly from behind, grounding me with his presence. Yet even as I tried to project certainty, the turbulent thoughts of the life Derek could disrupt gnawed at me from the inside. Derek laughed, a low, humorless sound. A lovely notion. But when the tides of reality shift, it won't be just my shadow that catches you in their grasp. In that moment, I wanted to scream. A frustration bubbled just beneath the surface, a desperate urgency to shield my family, to drive away the shadows threatening to binge on the light we had fought so hard to reclaim, but it wasn't the shadows I feared at that moment. It was the inescapable truth of my past, the actions that he leveraged against me, all of these chains that felt electrified and ready to drag me down. With renewed resolve, I took a step forward, the golden light from the shelter illuminating my face, removing the mask of fear from my features. You don't get to dictate our lives anymore. I'm not that girl you left behind. I'm different now. I've made a home, and I will fight for my family, but just as I said those words, a flicker of motion caught my eye, an unmistakable silhouette lurking in the shadows behind Derek. My heart dropped. It couldn't be. No. Not here, I whispered, fear crashing over me like a wave. Derek's expression morphed momentarily to curiosity, then smug satisfaction. You see, Amelia. The past never truly goes away. It's always lurking around, waiting for the right moment to strike. As if on cue, the figure stepped into the light, revealing a face I had not seen in years, but one that filled my heart with immediate dread. Sarah's eyes widened in recognition, the color draining from her face. No, she murmured, as if she couldn't believe what her eyes were showing her. Surprise, Derek said, his grin spreading wider, twinkling with the kind of malice only a familiar foe could possess. I told you it was only a matter of time before the past came knocking. The atmosphere thickened, and I felt like I was drowning in a tidal wave of revelations. I couldn't think, wrestling between denying the past and clinging to the light of the life I'd created. Amelia, the figure whispered, their voice hauntingly familiar and fragile, I'm here. To help, but help from whom? The past was an anchor dragging me deeper into the abyss, and as I stood rooted with tremors racking my body, I realized something profound. The interplay of darkness and light had only just begun, and this revelation was more than I could bear. Get out, I managed to hiss at Derek. I won't allow you to sabotage this place. But even as the words escaped, uncertainty gnawed at me. The reality of who had returned to vie for my soul was like fire licking at my heels. Tension crackled among us, silence stretching like a taut string. Time seemed suspended, the universe holding its breath as I grappled with the shadows of my past, standing on a wall of promises ready to tumble. And just as I was about to confront that looming figure, the embodiment of my fears, another twist of fate loomed in the darkness, perhaps even more perilous than Derek's looming threats. As that figure stepped forward, I caught a glimpse of something buried deep within them, a secret that could unravel everything I had fought for. The night felt heavier than ever, ignited by hope and haunted by memories, and as the air thickened with dramatic uncertainty, I sensed one undeniable truth: the confrontation had merely begun. Every nerve in my body felt electrified, the air heavy with the unsaid, the tension thicker than the shadows creeping closer. I stepped forward, jaw clenched, preparing to confront this figure from my past, the choice to fight intertwined with the haunting fear of losing everything I had built. As I braced myself, the figure stepped into the light, revealing the face that haunted my dreams for years. Lila, I whispered, the name barely a breath against the churning storm inside me. She stood there, eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears, every inch of her aligned with memories I had buried deep. Lila, my sister, the one who had vanished from my life, swallowed by the darkness I thought I had escaped. I came as soon as I found out," she stammered, shaking off the disbelief as anger flickered in her eyes, piercing through the memories of shared laughter, childhood dreams, and the cruel fate that tore us apart. "Derek is manipulating everything, Amelia. You have to believe me, manipulating." Derek sneered, his voice filled with mocking laughter that caused my heart to race. "Isn't it precious, this little family reunion? The darkness whispers sweetly in your ears, but you know just as well as I do, he's no protector. You can't trust her." The weight of his words pressed heavier against my chest as if they were stones meant to drag me under. But Lilith's desperate gaze anchored me. Somewhere beneath the worst of it all lay a truth I had yearned for, a connection I desperately craved. "You left me," I found myself saying, barely above a whisper, the bitterness lacing every syllable. "You left without a word, Lila. The day Mom it broke me. I thought I was saving you," she confessed, the flicker of regret crossing her features. "I didn't have a choice, Amelia, but I've learned. I've seen what he can do, the lives he's ruined, and I can help you put an end to this. But we must act now." Before I could respond, Derek stepped forward, his presence swallowing the light around us. "Oh, how touching, sisterly love. But listen closely, Amelia. You're not just in danger from me. Bring down every person around you. They can't play around with the past and believe they are safe. It'll tear them apart, just like it tore us apart." With a sudden surge of clarity, I felt the ground beneath me shift. I locked my eyes on Derek, refusing to let his malevolent words pierce my resolve. It was becoming clearer now was the architect of this chaos, feeding on fear, feeding on disconnection. And as the shadows flickered around us, I could feel the warmth of everyone I loved pushing back against the void he threatened to unleash. "Enough!" I shouted, my voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "I don't need your manipulation anymore, Derek. I've built a harem life, alongside people who actually care for me and who I care for deeply. Lila may have stumbled, but we're not broken, we are not weak." I glanced at Lila, my sister who had returned at a pivotal moment. "Together, we are strong. More than you ever knew. You have no power here." Seeing the fury in Derek's eyes, a flicker of uncertainty passed through me. Perhaps this was where my choices unraveled the past, where strength and sisterhood could shatter the chains he used to bind us. Derek's smile faltered, visibly irritated. "You think you can fight this? You're too far from it. Your past is an anchor, you'll never escape it." He gestured wildly, rage boiling beneath his calm facade. "But I can give it all back, all your memories, if you come with me. Just think of the life you had." "Derek, no!" Lila yelled, stepping closer to me. "You can't sway her. She's not going back to the darkness." Pausing, she reached for my hand, warmth flooding back between us, a promise of what we could still have. "We'll find a way to break the cycle. It's you and me, against our past, against him." I could feel the tide rushing to meet me, the realities of the choices ahead a reckoning. The past was bound to revisit us, and he could twist it any way he wanted, but I refused to give it that power. "There's no going back. Not to you, or the life you promised. I want a life filled with hope, Lila. One where we don't have to tiptoe around the looming shadows. Together we can heal, together we can build a new future. But it starts with standing up now." When Derek laughed, the sound chilled me. "Those in this sanctuary will suffer the consequences of your defiance. You can't protect them forever, don't you see? You have no idea what I'm capable of." "Maybe not," I said, straightening my spine, resolving to shield Lila, Ethan, and Joey from him. "But I know those that I am willing to fight for. You will not tear us apart any longer. This is my family, my home, and together we are unbreakable." With each word, I felt the warmth of those standing behind Meth Shelter staff, Joey, the children who trusted me. I released Lila's hand but felt her presence beside me, reinforcing me silently as we faced Derek together. His countenance shifted, the smugness giving way to irritation. You'll regret this, Amelia. Regret your defiance. And in that moment, I realized the power of choice rested with me. I took a deep breath, the weight of uncertainty still clinging like fog. Yet, within that fog burned a flickering light of resolve that told me we could protect what we valued. Lila looked at me, her eyes brimming with trust. We don't have to be alone in this. So many voices murmured around me, supportive, warm. Time to go, Derek, I said, standing my ground firmly. Your reign ends here, and with that decree echoing loud and clear, the storm began to break. The darkness unraveled, revealing the light that had fought to break through. The confrontation molded our destinies anew, and every heartbeat echoed with the strength of a family forged in the fires of not just the past but the vibrant hope of our future. Standing together, we faced Derek, hearts ignited, ready to reclaim our lives. And I knew, in the shadows, that this was merely the beginning. As the winds changed and the storm clouds thinned, I took a deep breath. I understood the journey ahead was unknown, but with Lila, Ethan, and Joey at my side, together we could navigate whatever lay ahead, shattering the chains of the past and stepping boldly into our new destiny. Always forward, I whispered, feeling the warmth of light envelop us, one step at a time. And somewhere in my heart, I knew that together we would find our home.